Hey, what day is it?
Hey.
I was going to say Happy Halloween. It's the day before Halloween. Happy Wednesday.
And it is definitely not Thanksgiving.
It is definitely not Thanksgiving. And by the way, the other shows, have been, messing that up as well. So you are not the only one. If you've been watching the last few days, we've been struggling, or Felicia mainly has been struggling. I've only done one thing. I haven't stated it, though.
It's contagious.
Thanks for joining us here on Weather Channel Live. I'm meteorologist Chris Bruin alongside meteorologist Felicia Combs. We obviously have Halloween one day away, and we are going to get to that forecast because jack-o'-lanterns might be a big factor, and tornadoes. We've got a torque on of 5.
Yeah, and the line is going to move through quickly once it finally moves through, but we're going to have hours of that severe risk before all is said and done. So let's break that down for you. I will take a closer look at damage. I mean, we are talking about that possibility for winds gusting upwards of over 70 miles an hour, especially in the darker blue shading. And as we know, any of those damaging wind gusts can bring down tree limbs. They can bring down weaker trees as well. So that is something to keep in mind as this line of storms moves through. Going to watch as our trough ejects its way off to the north central plains, and then just really working with a ton of energy. We've got so many different components coming together that are bringing us this risk for severe weather. So plenty of moisture out ahead of the front. So we need that to get those storms going. We'll watch as this front continues to make its way south and eastward, interacting with really strong low-level winds that ups that wind risk as well. And then, of course, as we take a closer look at the setups of the atmosphere that's bringing us that risk for some supercells, you've got southwesterly mid-level winds, and that's going to support those supercells, keep them going, and allow them to thrive in that environment. So what you're looking at here, this is the wind shear component to the rotating storm possibilities. So we've highlighted the risk areas you can see in this kind of zone right here that's highlighted in this darker red shading. That's where we have that highest risk for a few tornadoes. So at the surface, we've got those winds there kind of coming ahead of the front out of the south, behind the front out of a more northwesterly direction. Now, when we overlay the winds that are a little bit higher up in the atmosphere, you can see here that we're getting these winds coming out of completely different directions at the surface and at the a little bit higher in the atmosphere because of that front, because of the changes that are going on with that. So that is going to create some of that shear that we need to get those storms going with some rotation, maybe some very large hail, maybe some tornadoes as well. So we've already got some severe thunderstorm warnings ongoing, tons of lightning with this as well. The atmosphere is just charged. And here's the thing about this. This is going to continue into the nighttime hours. So a quick look at the timing on this. You'll notice as this continues blossoming into a more robust line heading into that 8 o'clock hour, 9, 10, 11 o'clock, blasting through the Ozarks and then continuing down through Arkansas toward the Boot Hill. So a lot of us will be dealing with that possibility for tornadoes overnight tonight. So here's what you need to know when you're dealing with that possibility for tornadoes coming at night. With that risk for severe storms at all, but if you're there in the areas that are getting the storms this afternoon and this evening, you're probably kind of thankful you're not getting them on Halloween. Yeah, so timing, I mean, now this whole system will push east, so there will be somebody getting some rain, but at least we're not going to have the same kind of severe threat tomorrow as to what we'll have today. There could be an isolated risk, but not a widespread threat. Yeah, it's not going to be like what we see later this evening. Let's take a look at that, because a lot of us make you feel a little chilly. And the Northeast, we're actually going to be on the warm side, so very pleasant forecast. A lot of that rain should hold off until after trick-or-treating, by the way, for the western parts. NYC should be in the upper 50s. Instead, it's more like the mid-70s for you. Pittsburgh could be near records. It could be near their record warmest Halloween. Yeah, so, soak it in, because we know it will get cold here before long. And one last stop on the west, the southwest actually looks perfect. I mean, actually cool. 67 in Las Vegas at 3 p.m. tomorrow. We are going to have rain in Oregon, Washington, and northern parts of California. Day, which means we are edging ever closer to the weekend. So maybe you're trying to figure that out. Maybe you're starting your weekend a little sooner with some Halloween parties tomorrow. Halloween. Yeah. Yes. I think I've gotten the hang of it by now. Because I was like, I want to make sure you know. But so most are going to be dealing with rain. Yeah, but you look at the middle of the country, you look at the southwest, you look at the east coast. Most of us are dry. There's going to be some rain here, and these are scattered thunderstorms. So there'll be some wiggle room, I think, for most of us. Yeah, it's not going to ruin your Halloween, but you will have to keep an eye on that. And some of those storms could be a little feisty. Now, as we head toward Friday, we'll watch as that front moves farther to the south and east. But look at the rest of the country cooling down finally. The temperatures really kind of stand out. But I mean, upper 50s with sunshine in Denver, 68 in Albuquerque, 73 in Los Angeles. And then you see this. Yeah, your Saturday, we reintroduced the rain back across the central U.S. And man, what a system in the Pacific Northwest.
Those are going to be our next big stories.
Yeah. Ghost Hunter Spooktacular. You can get that all tomorrow. Alex Wilson, all in on weather, all out on ghost hunting, and I would agree.
Well, the interesting thing about that, they're using weather instruments to kind of see what they can detect.
She and Dr. Postel down in Savannah checking that out. So a fun time there. Thanks for sticking with us here on Weather Channel Live. Meteorologist Combs, meteorologist Chris Bruin.
Yeah.
You know, I wish we had all the fun times to talk about today, but instead we are focusing on severe weather, and some of those storms are popping off in a big way already.
Yeah, it's really starting to rain.
You don't see a Torcon, you don't see a Torcon at all if there's not a risk, but especially when you're seeing a Torcon of 5, that's something you want to pay attention to for that risk of tornadoes. So let's break that down now. Already at 90 miles an hour. So that's something you want to, treat as a tornado warning. We've got that threat for damaging winds continuing into the nighttime hours. We're going to watch as our trough kind of ejects its way off and through the plains. But what you need to know is the timing on this. So here's our front. We're going to have that front moving southward into a favorable environment. We've got winds changing direction with height. So all of that's going to come together to bring us that risk for rotating storms. You see it here, wind shear as we head into the later afternoon. Trying to get to that timing for you so we can time it out. Let's take a look at this. That is going to continue pushing southward and really start to bubble up as we head into the evening and overnight hours. Kansas City, Springfield, Missouri. Forecast has been calling for severe storms today. We're already starting to see that happen. Latest here, a severe thunderstorm watch. I always like to remind people that the watch means the conditions are right, that it could happen. The warning means it's imminent. You want to take that seriously, and some of these have been already really popping off. Yeah,
it's in these zones where we already have some really dangerous storms. Notice Des Moines, you're in the severe thunderstorm watch, as well as St. Joseph, so just north of the Kansas City metro area. But we got a whole just sector of severe thunderstorm warnings, and now we're starting to watch that squall line kind of develop, because we even got some strong storms now, even severe storms in far south Kansas. Let's start with this one.
Right, yeah.
Just in southern Iowa.
So the threat considerable tag on that because those winds are very gusty. And you can kind of see the backward C shape taking place in a lot of these sections of the line that we're seeing coming together. I would treat these severe thunderstorm warnings, Chris, with the considerable threat or destructive threat tag as a tornado warning. You want to take these very seriously.
I would 100%. Todd, if we could time this out really quickly, it's kind of nearing the state line. Looks like the worst of the weather just north of Maryville, where Northwest Missouri State University is. But some strong winds moments away in Maryville, and then Grant City there at 2:17 p.m. One more coming up. Welcome into Weather Channel Live. Thanks for joining us. I'm meteorologist Chris Bruin alongside meteorologist Felicia Combs. We're going to get to that Halloween forecast, but the big story today, the severe weather. Yeah, we're watching some of these storms bubble up very quickly and become intense. We are tracking a whole line of storms and that possibility for damaging winds, tornadoes, and very large hail. So it is going to be a really active afternoon, evening, into tonight. And we've already seen that. We're already seeing power outages. We're already seeing reports of downed trees. So these storms are already getting intense and are only going to be getting stronger as we go into this evening. But let's get a look at your headlines first. And watch as that heavy rain, that lightning, all of that begins to build in. Let's time it out for you, because I know, this is going to be moving through when some of us are getting off of work. Maybe you're trying to finish your evening errands, whatever you might be doing. So I want to make sure you know what you're dealing with. Don't take this as like complete exact timing, but you can see here by 8 o'clock, this is already pushed through Kansas City. This line is starting to edge toward Oklahoma City as well by 8 p.m. So a lot of us are going to be dealing with these storms overnight after the sun has gone down. Here's our line segment really taking shape, blasting along that 44 corridor as we head into the overnight hours after midnight. Fort Smith, eventually this line is going to be moving in for you early Thursday morning, and then blasting down toward Little Rock. Now, it will begin to lose some of that severe steam as we head through the overnight and into tomorrow, but for now, this is what we're dealing with, and it has all the ingredients that you need to get those tornado warnings, to get those severe thunderstorm warnings as well. So what you're looking at here is a representation, the circles that you're seeing representing those severe risk areas with our torcons of 2, 3, and 5. You see that highlighted here. What you're also seeing is a representation of the winds. So you'll notice out ahead of that front, we've got those winds coming in with a more southerly component. Behind that front, a more northerly component. That's at the surface level. Now, when we go up in the atmosphere just a little bit more, you can see where we have these winds coming in kind of at different directions around here, around that area where we have the highest risk for tornadoes as well. So the atmospheric ingredients are certainly there to get some of those supercells, to get some really potent storms moving into
an atmosphere of just a lot of moisture, a lot of instability to work with, and that's exactly what that front is going to use. We've got strong low-level winds out of the south that's pumping in that warmth and moisture. We've got, as you go up a little bit in the mid-level winds, becoming more southwesterly. So all of that comes together to create that risk for supercells and very strong storms. We've also got the risk for some flash flooding. The atmosphere is just juiced with moisture from that southerly wind component, bringing that up off the Gulf of Mexico. Let's take a look at the winds, because even outside of your thunderstorm winds, this has been a very gusty system, and those winds are going to remain gusty as the system makes its way to the Great Lakes region heading through Thursday afternoon. Now, as mentioned, a lot of us are going to be dealing with that risk for tornadoes heading into the overnight hours. So take a look at what you need to know about nighttime tornadoes. You also don't want to deal with rain for your Halloween forecast, but some of us will be. Won't be a washout, but some of us will have to watch. I don't know, maybe plan your costume around getting some rain showers.
For sure. You know, thankfully the severe threat kind of diminishes for Halloween. You know, I would say if we're looking at a washout of a forecast, maybe like Astoria, Oregon, on the coastal areas, that's going to be where we're going to see, you know, pretty wet. But I mean, this is late October. Right. It's the wet season.
Maybe you did your Halloween before. Maybe you did it last weekend. I know a lot of people did it this past weekend.
A lot of trunk or treats. A lot of people getting out and doing that. So maybe a costume out. I know our producer is.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I never costume out. All right, let's take a look at what you can expect for your through Wednesday, which means the weekend is in view, and your Halloween also in view. Some of us are going to have fantastic Halloween weather.
I mean, look how much in the middle of the country. It'll be chilly and cold, but it's going to be dry. The Southwest, phenomenal. And even though it's going to be on the mild side, we're looking great, even up and down the eastern seaboard.
You say even though it's going to be on the mild side, I'm like, yes, it's going to be warmer than average. You can see some of these temperatures here. Now, we are going to start to see that change, though. Look at that much cooler air building in behind this frontal boundary on
64,
Friday.
Kansas City, but abundant sunshine. 46, still kind of cloudy. This is going to be a cold spot in North Dakota. And then our next storm system starts to come into view here for the West Coast, already impacting Oregon and Washington today. This will continue through the end of the week.
Still warm in Boston, D.C., down through Atlanta by Friday, but we will start to see those changes. I mean, look at Saturday here in Boston. Mid-50s as that front has moved through. Yeah, I know that's going to be a big change for you guys. It's going to be even chillier as you're waking up Sunday morning, but look at that. Also changes coming to the southern plains in the form of rain and storms.
Yeah, so severe weather, flooding will become an issue because this does not stay still. It kind of, or I should say, it doesn't move, stays still into much of the weekend. And there's a look here off towards the northeast.
To be progressing eastward. The severe thunderstorm watch until 7 p.m. local time for Des Moines down into Kirksville. We've already seen some severe thunderstorms packing quite a punch. And the threat for damaging winds, that's what you're seeing here, especially in this darker coloring of the blue. We've already had some storms, as Chris mentioned, that have brought down trees, have brought down power lines with significant gusty winds. So even outside of a tornado warning, those severe thunderstorm warnings are dangerous with this system, as well as also mentioned, these storms are racing off to the northeast. You can kind of see them here at about 60, 65 miles an hour. Some of the cells are. So you don't have a lot of time once you find out that you're in that warning to get to your safe place. Taking a look at the timing on this, you'll notice it's in 8, 9 o'clock for Kansas City, pushing into the Ozarks during the overnight hours, down through Arkansas for the early morning.
All right, I want to get back to the radar right now. We've got our line starting to take shape. Still kind of broken, but it's eventually going to be fully connected and just sweeping through this area. Couple of warned storms. We'll start our way from north to south, but notice these storms firing up now in Oklahoma too.
You're starting to see that line fill in, and that is what we expected. We expected to have some storms out ahead of that frontal line, and then we're seeing more of those storms building in. A lot of what we've seen is that risk for damaging wind gusts so far, Chris.
Yeah, so we've been in and out of the rain. It's been very wet this afternoon in Des Moines. We even had some stronger storms earlier. This is the cell to the south and west that we're concerned about. It's moving towards I-35 and likely going to stay just to the south of Des Moines. We've also seen so much rain already. We've kind of stabilized the air a little bit. So even as these storms drift that way, I do think they'll weaken, but we're still going to get in on heavy rain in Des Moines proper. South of there, say around Winterset and Murray, is where we can see more of those damaging winds.
You don't want to be caught on I-35, especially in that crosswind when that storm comes blasting through. Now, some of these storms, I think if we go just a little bit farther south to one of those farther southern warnings, they're producing like ping pong ball size hail. So want to touch on that one. This one here in Kansas, I was checking that one out. Ping pong ball size hail for Kingman and Reno counties. You've got the 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. And Chris, this is rushing off.
You can see a little bit of that right there.
Yeah,
that
you
hail
can see
core.
that hail tracker. So
just north of Cunningham.
Don't want your car out in that.
Nope.
Starting and will continue into the overnight hours. Thanks for sticking with us here on the Weather Channel Live. Meteorologist Felicia Combs going to break down some of those warnings that we've got ongoing. As you can see, the wider picture here, we've got very heavy rain moving through western portions, central portions of Iowa, and then some of those severe warnings starting to stretch all the way down into Oklahoma as that line is filling in. So here's our severe thunderstorm warning for Ringgold and Union counties. This is blasting off to the northeast at around 60 miles an hour, closing in on that I-35 corridor. You see it here, and you can see that backward C shape. That is indicative of some of those strong storms within that severe thunderstorm warning. Des Moines, you've got some rain right now. This line is going to continue filling in off to the north and east. And we've also got quite a bit of lightning. Now, lightning is not one of the components that you need for a severe storm. You're not going to get a severe thunderstorm warning because of lightning, but it still does make it dangerous. And just outside of Kansas City right now. So around Lawrence, kind of moving along that I-70 corridor, Kansas City, it's going to be a couple more hours before that gets to you. We've got a severe thunderstorm watch until 7 p.m. local time for Des Moines down into Kirksville. That is not making it all the way to Kansas City, but I would not be surprised if we see this severe thunderstorm watch maybe expanded, maybe some more areas included in that. Taking a look at this particular severe thunderstorm warning for Kingman and Reno counties. So if you are in Reno, if you're in South Hutchinson, pay attention to this because this is warned for ping pong ball sized hail. It's moving off to the northeast pretty quickly. So if you are out and about, you don't want to get your car caught in ping pong ball size hail. Also some gusty winds within that as well. Watching this line of storms taking shape in Custer and Dewey counties. That is for the cities of Butler and Hammond until 3:15. Abby, we have that considerable threat tag on that. Do you know what that's for? Is that wind gusts maybe? Probably wind gusts at 70 miles an hour, I'm guessing, or large hail. 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts. Okay, thanks, Abby. So quarter-size hail, 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts with that considerable threat tag. That's just north of I-40. So this line segment is going to continue filling in that risk for damaging winds for large hail, but also a tornado risk. We've got torcons of 5 for portions of Kansas down into portions of Oklahoma. Wichita, Oklahoma City, you're included in that tornado watch until 9 p.m. local time. As this line of storms continues to make its way eastward, you'll see that filling in. So here's 5 o'clock. We're getting off of work in Wichita, and those storms are blasting through. Kansas City, more like a 9 o'clock thing for you as the sun is going down. Those storms will be blasting through. Meanwhile, overnight into the Ozarks, Springfield, St. Louis, that's knocking on your door or early Thursday morning, and then blasting down through Arkansas toward Little Rock a little later Thursday morning. Indianapolis, Paducah, Memphis, you're all getting in on this. Although I will say that this line segment is going to begin losing some of its steam, but it is still going to bring some storms, even if it is not quite as potent.
To get heavy snow in Minnesota. Right. Because that doesn't happen. We may get some flakes, but I think tomorrow, Felicia, is going to be interesting here. We actually have been upgraded now to winter storm warnings for Duluth, Minnesota. We got a couple of winter storm watches on some of the surrounding counties, and then we are going to get snow in a place like Minneapolis.
Chris, I think they heard you talking, and they were like, you know what, let's go ahead and issue those winter weather alerts because you were waiting for it. Now, you'll notice as you're looking at the future radar here, it's going to start out as rain, but what happens quite often when you get these kind of centers of low pressure and you get that counterclockwise circulation, they pull down that cooler air and you start to see that winter weather wrapping in where the rain used to be, and that's exactly what's going to happen.
So this is the latest model run, and notice at 8 a.m., so we're in the morning commute around Minneapolis, we're showing a changeover to heavy, wet snow.
Oh, terrible timing.
You've got to be prepared, and this is not, some of your phone apps may only show rain with this kind of a setup. This could be a surprise for some if you're not paying attention. So I do think we could see accumulating snow. Some of the models, Felicia, are showing between 2 to 5 inches, even in the Minneapolis, St. Paul metro area. Now, that could be on the higher end, but somebody is going to get that much snow here in Minnesota.
And with that big push of cold air, it could be sticking around into trick-or-treat time.
For sure. October 30th. Tomorrow's Halloween.
Oh wow, you even remember the day. We're on a roll today.
We are, and part of the reason is we're going to get a look at that Halloween forecast, but we've got severe weather.
That's right, and we've got a lot of that severe weather already bubbling up this afternoon, and we've got hours of this ahead. It is not going to be over quickly into the nighttime hours. We've got that risk for severe storms,
and it does continue into Halloween. But thankfully weakening. as we get into tomorrow.
We are thankful for that. Now, I will say some of us have been in the Halloween spirit and waiting for some fall as well. We've already seen that realized. Some of these storms were packing damaging wind gusts up around 90 miles an hour. We've had reports of power outages and trees down, and that's going to continue as this line takes shape. A couple of different segments that we're watching. You can kind of see this first segment here that's making its way into northwestern portions of Missouri, making its way through southern Iowa, and then this other kind of area of storminess, that line of storms that's getting its act together through central Kansas, back right now into western Oklahoma, but it will continue pushing eastward. So let's time that out for you, because this is going to be affecting some of us as we're getting off of work, as you're making your way home. Here's at 8 o'clock, and this is blasting through Kansas City around that time. Des Moines, that main line of heavy storminess is past you, but you're still in the rain. Watch what happens heading into the overnight hours, 9, 10, 11 o'clock. So 11 o'clock, this is starting to move into the Ozarks. Overnight, midnight, you've got that moving through Fort Smith. This is going to be a very early Thursday morning thing for you. You can see that's already moved through 4 a.m. And then this whole line continues progressing southeastward through Little Rock, Paducah, Indianapolis as we head into your late Halloween morning, and then continues pushing eastward for the afternoon. Chris talked about those ingredients coming together for that risk of some of those supercells for getting these storms to turn severe. Now, what you're looking at is the circles that you see here. That is the outline of the Torcon. So Torcon 2, Torcon 3, up to Torcon 5 that you see in this darker red shading here. And then we've also got those winds. So you're looking at a representation of the winds at surface level. Of course, you know the atmosphere is a column. So you've got to get all of those agreements in the column, or all of those areas in the column together in agreement to get that severe weather. And that's what we're getting when you have the winds coming out of the south here. And then you can kind of see that crossing. When you go in the up in the atmosphere, you're getting more of a southwesterly direction. At the surface, it's more southerly. So that's creating a little bit of that shear that's going to help to get those supercells into the forecast, which is what we're seeing. So those storms blowing up along that frontal boundary as it pushes south and east. We've got strong low-level winds to work with. I mean, Chris just showed us that we've got winds that are very, very gusty out ahead of this frontal boundary. So when you've got winds that are already gusty, couple that with the support that we have in the mid-levels, you're just looking at a situation that is a damaging wind all around. Not to mention the fact that we've got a ton of moisture to work with. You've got that possibility for flash flooding from Kansas City down through Little Rock, Shreveport, Lufkin, all included in that. And as I mentioned, we're already dealing with those gusty winds even outside of those thunderstorms. So Kansas City, OKC, you've got those 40, 50 mile per hour gusts. We watch as those gusts pick up in St. Louis and Chicago heading into the overnight hours. Eventually Nashville, Cincinnati, you're seeing those gusts become a bit stronger as well. Now, as mentioned, some of us are going to be dealing with that risk for tornadoes into the overnight hours. Mike Bettis tells you the 3 things you need to watch out for with nighttime tornadoes.
Here in Fort Smith and Fayetteville.
Yeah, no, that's not that light rain that's going to just soothe you to sleep. That's
not.
That thunder that might wake you up. Now, we are going to track this line as it moves farther east, and it might be bringing some rain, maybe some rumbles of thunder to some people for their Halloween forecast. So let's take a look at that, where we will.
And for the Northeast, we're going to be on the warm side, believe it or not. Even after the sun goes down, we're talking upper 60s across southern New England. And for New York, still in the 70s here for much of trick-or-treating.
You should be in the upper 50s in New York right now. So you're not really close to that. You're about 15 degrees above average. And in the meantime, a place like Pittsburgh, they're going to get really close to their record warmest Halloween ever. So Pittsburgh, you might be like, man, it's never been this warm before on Halloween.
It's actually going to be warmer in Pittsburgh on Halloween than Las Vegas.
Yeah,
which looks great.
It's comfortable. We are thoroughly into Wednesday afternoon at this point, which means we're edging closer and closer to Halloween and the weekend.
Only about 26 hours away from trick-or-treating, right? Maybe not even, almost 24 hours. So we've got a couple systems. Obviously, our big storm maker that's leading to the severe weather today, it will still be a factor for tomorrow, mainly in the form of scattered showers and storms from the Ohio Valley down to the Gulf Coast, and then our next big player here along the West Coast.
Yeah, if you're wondering where some of the colder air is, it's across the northern tier behind this front and over into the Pacific Northwest. Now, here's a look at Friday. We're going to watch as that front continues making its way south and east, and you'll notice what's happening with some of these temperatures. Out ahead of that front, we're still warm in places like Atlanta, but behind it, Chicago, much more seasonable in the mid-50s.
Maybe a little cooler than what you would expect. 45 in Bismarck. Sunshine will at least feel nice in Denver. Get ready for bigger impacts as we go into the weekend. We could see some snow in Denver early next week, but 61 on Saturday. Not too bad.
You got that chance for storms in Dallas as well. That is a crazy story.
You know, scarier word than zombie parasite, right?
What is it?
A parasite.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that is more scary than the zombie itself,
I thought
right?
you were going to say something like Halloween themed.
No.
Like,
No, I was like, you had me at
ghost.
parasite. You don't even need to add zombie in there. This is scary.
I mean, it's crazy to think that zombie crabs might be what we're dealing with. But that's the Spooktacular that's going to be on the Weather Channel tomorrow for Halloween as we're headed toward that.
Yeah, a lot of little pieces throughout the day, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Of course, we're keeping you up to date on the latest with the severe weather. I'm meteorologist Chris Bruin, by the way, alongside Felicia Combs. A lot to cover. We're monitoring a couple of severe warned storms right now. Thankfully, we haven't had any tornado warnings.
Right.
But we likely will see at least a few in the hours to come.
Threat for damaging winds. That's been one of the risks that we've seen with some of these severe thunderstorm warnings. I mean, we've already had power lines down, some trees down with some of these warnings. So that severe damaging wind gust threat is really there and going to remain one of those threats that we have into the overnight hours. Take a look at our current active Saturn radar. We've got some of those storms, and what you'll notice are like a lot of these little individual cells getting these warnings here. You're kind of seeing that within that main line of storminess. So that's one of the components of this. We've got the line, but you've also got those kind of individual cells within it that are creating those damaging wind gust threats. So here's 8 p.m. Here's Kansas City. Those storms are blasting through there for you. And we're watching this line as it pushes south and eastward. OKC around 8 p.m. for you as well. And the model is hinting at some pretty robust storms. Heading into the Ozarks as we're moving into 11 o'clock midnight tonight. St. Louis is going to be early Thursday morning for you. Fort Smith, same thing for you. And then into Indianapolis, Paducah, Little Rock. Now that threat isn't quite as high as you get farther to the east, but it is still there. You still might have a little bit of to some of these storms, even as they're pushing farther eastward. We do have that vertical shear. We've got that wind shear as you go up through the atmosphere. So that is one of the components.
Out to the water vapor, we got a lot of activity here, kind of just turbulence in the atmosphere, and the water vapor shows you our front, kind of the nation split, cold behind it and warm in front of it. So look at this.
I was going to say, you know what I think shows it even better than the water vapor?
So you got the storms, and look ahead of it. Wichita, almost 80 degrees, and we got winds gusting to 40. Behind, I mean, we're talking maybe 50, 60 miles.
Right, that's a 25
52, and then look at Holdridge up into the upper 40s.
Yeah. With
some cold rain back here, 58 in Dodge City, but you're dry. 52
Kansas City, Kirksville,
77.
70s.
Wow.
Yeah, so you can definitely tell where the front is there. I mean, you can tell where the storms are firing up as well, but especially when you look at that clashing of the air masses that we have, which is causing this.
Several severe thunderstorm warnings, especially on the southern flank of our line. This storm right here, see how it's bowing out a little bit? Newton, if you're there, definitely get inside. I mean, you're 5-10 minutes away from some of the worst, the weather coming through. That's Harvey, Marion, and McPherson counties there in Kansas till 4 p.m. under severe thunderstorm warning.
A lot of these storm cells are moving off to the northeast really quickly, 60, 65 miles an hour. So that means you're not going to have much time to get in your safe spot when you're dealing with one of those storms. For the Harbors County and Kingman County, you also have that severe thunderstorm warning, some damaging winds, maybe a little bit of hail with that as well.
When we go down to Oklahoma, several storms firing up here just west of I-35.
I want to get you straight to some of the active warnings that we have ongoing. We've got some dangerous storms out there right now, really seeing this take shape. We've got multiple severe thunderstorm warnings. We've got tornado watches and severe thunderstorm watches up as well. You can see that tornado watch. Let's take a look at some of these warnings that we have going on. This particular warning for the cities of Cordell, Mangum included in that, the threat considerable tag on that one. Taking a closer look at that, south of that I-40 corridor, we're seeing some possibility for some gusty winds, some hail. Want to look at this one a little bit more closely, though. This severe thunderstorm warning here in Oklahoma for the cities of Fairview, Helena included in that. That is for Garfield County as well until 4:30. Now, you may notice this destructive threat tag on here. We are talking about 80-mile-per-hour wind gusts, large hail within this. And then I want to zoom in because we're getting some indication that you might have some rotation here by Highway 412. Thanks for highlighting that there. So where you're seeing those greens and those reds together, that is a good indication of some rotation within that storm, that possibility for some tornadic activity. So timing it out for you. If you're in Carlisle, I would be in my safe place right now. I would be on the lowest level of my home, away from doors and windows. Yeah, I know this only has, I'm going to quote, only has a severe thunderstorm warning on it, but it does have that destructive threat tag on it, and we are seeing some indications of rotation. So treat this as a tornado warning. In Helena, I'm talking to you. 4:05, the storm will be near you. You need to be in your safe place right now. Same thing for Jet. This is going to continue lifting off very quickly to the north and east. So keep that in mind. These storms are packing a punch. We've already seen trees down, power outages from some of these storms that have developed within this system. So they are, the threat is being realized. It's not just something we're talking about. It's something that we have seen, that we've seen evidence of. Up to this severe thunderstorm warning in Kansas now for Harper County, for Kingman County until 4:30. Some hail within that, some gusty winds along that line as that line of storms is continuing to fill in. Now we've got this cell that's just crossing over 135 right now. Harvey County, Marion, you're included in that until 4 o'clock. Some gusty winds within this. You can kind of see again that backward C shape that's indicative of those damaging wind gusts. That is going to continue lifting off to the northeast as well. And then even outside of the severe ingredients or the severe parameters that some of these storms have, just a ton of lightning, and lightning itself can be dangerous, that you don't want to be out in it. You can see that line stretching north and east from Salina up toward that I-29 corridor. St. Joseph, you guys are getting rocked right now. Just a steady wall of lightning moving through St. Joseph. And then we're watching that line of storm stretching up through Des Moines, going to take that all the way up to La Crosse as well with that rain and that lightning. So, Chris, this is the system, as expected, is really bringing that severe weather, which is what we expected for it to bring. And then, of course, eventually, it's going to bring some winter weather as well.
Yeah, speaking of winter weather, let's take a look. We've actually got winter storm watches and winter weather advisories, Felicia, here for parts of Minnesota. This does include Duluth as well as northern parts of Wisconsin.
Yeah, we're going to get that wrap around. It's going to start as rain. And then when we get that colder air to wrap around that center of low pressure, you need to get that counterclockwise circulation, draws in that cold air, and we are going to see that rain switching over to wintry weather. St. Cloud, Minneapolis. You know, I have made that drive, Chris, from Minneapolis to St. Cloud on I-94 before in conditions like this, and it is no fun. You don't want to be driving tomorrow morning.
Especially with the first snow, too. A lot of people, you know, especially this one, this is coming in the morning commute. Hopefully it's a little bit later than when most people are on the roads, but we got to be prepared for a heavy, wet snow and very low visibilities. I mean, some of the rates that this snow could fall could be problematic here. And even though we don't have advisories for Minneapolis, St. Paul, I am concerned about this forecast for people being kind of caught by surprise. And that first snow, too, it's kind of a reaction type snow. So everyone kind of forgets how to drive.
Right. And you know what's also coming along with this? Those gusty winds. The system has had a history of being very gusty. So that not only is it going to be snowing very hard, but you're going to have that snow blowing, which is going to reduce visibility even more. It is not going to be fun to be driving in this tomorrow.
And look at this. The latest guidance now, the forecast continues to push further south in towards the northern suburbs of Minneapolis. Wouldn't surprise me if we could see between 3 and 5 inches of snowfall by tomorrow morning. Welcome back into Weather Channel Live. Thanks for joining us here on October 30th, the day before Halloween.
Even as you said that, I almost said Thanksgiving. I don't know where my brain is. It's already jumped past Halloween. Maybe, you know what, because it just can't decide what season it wants to be, my brain also can't decide what holiday it's supposed to be.
And we have all extremes. I mean, we've got a feeling more like, you know, early September or early December.
It just depends on where you are. And some of us are just getting absolutely rocked by storms. So it just depends on where you are. Although I'd say it was a little peaceful, a little more peaceful in some areas where we got some snow. Keep a very close eye on this risk for tornadoes heading through the next several hours. The tornado risk is there. We've talked about that tornado watch, but also that risk for damaging wind gusts. When you're seeing these destructive threat tags or considerable threat tags on these severe thunderstorm warnings, that is indicative of those very damaging winds. So you want to treat these severe thunderstorm warnings very seriously as well as you would treat a tornado warning. So we've got a tornado warning up, multiple severe thunderstorm warnings, as Chris just pointed out. I want to time this out for you because for some of us, as mentioned, it's going to be after sunset that this line of storms is moving in. You'll notice heading into the 8 o'clock hour, that is blasting through Kansas City. I'd say about 7 to 9 o'clock. o'clock on that. But look what's happening here. The model picking up at kind of some of these individual cells here, these Boeing segments. So I would keep my eye out for some tornadoes embedded within this main line of storms for those damaging wind gusts heading into the Ozarks as we progress toward 11 o'clock midnight tonight. OKC evening for you, but Fort Smith early Thursday morning. That is going to continue pushing eastward. St. Louis, Paducah, Indianapolis down into Little Rock. You're all feeling this storminess. Now, the good news is it pushes farther east. The intensity of the storms, the possibility for very, very strong storms is kind of weakening a bit, but we're still stuck in it for quite some time. Now, here's one of the ingredients that we have coming together to bring us that risk for tornadoes, for supercells with some rotation. We've got wind shear. So what you're looking at right now are the surface winds. That is coming out of the south, out ahead of that front, a little bit more of a northerly component behind that frontal boundary. And then when we overlay the 5,000 feet winds, or a little bit higher in the atmosphere, you get especially where we have that Torcon of 5, which is represented by this red here. Those winds are kind of coming out of different directions. That really aids in the atmosphere's ability to get supercells, to get tornadoes, to get really rambunctious storms. So we're watching as those storms are blowing up. Overnight tonight, we've got strong low-level winds. In the mid-levels, those southwesterly winds, and all of that's going to come together to bring us that risk for some tornadoes. And as mentioned, nighttime tornadoes. That will be one of the risks as this frontal boundary moves south and east. Mike Bettis talks about what you need to know for nighttime tornadoes. Right. You're like, oh, no, what's going on? Hopefully there's no alerts on your phone going off, waking you up with like severe thunderstorm warnings or tornado warnings.
It's either the alerts or the lightning so close, it's so loud that it wakes you up.
Yeah, you don't want that. Especially when Thursday is such a big day. I know the kiddos get really excited about Halloween. Now, for a lot of us, that front will have moved through and you'll just have cooler.
5 to 8 is going to be raining that whole time in those areas. I think there'll be some dry periods in between. You might have to wiggle around that, be flexible. But I think for most of us, it's really not all that bad for Halloween.
Right, for most of us. I mean, and even if you do have the rain, you kind of pop back in, let the rain shower pass, and then move on. It's if you have the storms or the lightning or thunder, you can't be out in
If you're midway trick-or-treating and it rains, you get to become friends with some new people down the street,
Hopefully.
right?
Hopefully they have the good candy.
Hopefully
like the
they want you to
Kinder
hang out in your house a little bit.
Exactly. All right, out ahead of that front, though, a lot of us are going to be pretty warm by Halloween standards. I mean, across the southeast, places like Atlanta, you're going to have a warmer day. Miami, not bad, but it is going to be a bit breezy.
And, you know, for Florida Halloween, can't complain, right? At least it's dry.
Right.
We don't have a hurricane we're dealing with.
Yeah.
In the Northeast, we will be dry. There is some rain there in Ohio.
Counting down the hours until Halloween trick-or-treating. We're hours away now. And for a lot of us, the forecast looks really good. And for some of us, you're just going to have to plan a little bit more.
Yeah, so warm where you are there on the eastern seaboard. Cold and dry here for much of the middle and southwest part of the U.S. Our next big storm system will lead to some at times heavy rainfall. This will probably be the worst forecast because it's going to be steady.
Yeah.
Versus this will be more scattered and you'll be able to kind of pivot.
Worse than you think here? Worse than you think?
Well, this is we had snow. I like that. A snowy Halloween. And the snow's going to be in the morning, which will be bad for people getting to work and school.
Right.
But by trick-or-treating, a lot of this should dry out.
All right, well, let's move forward from your Halloween to your Friday because we're going to watch that front as it continues pushing south and east. You're still going to be pretty warm in Atlanta and D.C. out ahead of that front, but changes are coming to places like Chicago. Chicago, you're finally feeling much more seasonable.
For sure. It's going to be chilly, for sure, and those are your highs. Overnight lows will likely be in the upper 30s in many of these spots. There's our big storm across the west, and notice the rain making a comeback here for the southern plains.
Tomorrow on the Weather Channel, not only are we going to have your weather forecast, but lots of fun, spooky things like that.
Oh, yeah. You get to see more of those scenes from Alex and Dr. Postel kind of jerk up or fear or whatever.
So funny. Thanks for sticking with us here on Weather Channel Live. Meteorologist Chris Bruin, Felicia Combs here. We have been breaking down all the different things that you need to know for your Halloween forecast, but also we have been keeping a close eye on those severe storms. They've been really popping up in the past couple hours.
You know, before we even get to Halloween, we got a big threat for
in Lewis or Little Rock or up into Des Moines. That is still not a zero risk of tornadoes. So you want to have some way to get those alerts and know your safety plan, especially when you're talking about that overnight risk. We've also got the threat for damaging winds, and some of these storms have really produced some destructive winds already with those severe thunderstorm warnings. So I would treat a severe thunderstorm warning very seriously as well. You know, All it takes is one old tree or one large tree limb coming down on your home, and then it's a terrible situation. So you want to take that very seriously. You see our line of storms progressing eastward, as Chris mentioned, knocking on the door there in Wichita, Kansas City. You're going to watch as those storms move in later this evening. Watch how this fills in. There's 7, 8 o'clock for Kansas City, moving into the Ozarks as we're heading into 10, 11, 12, midnight, and then Oklahoma City. That moves into Fort Smith by Thursday morning, very early Thursday morning. That'll be waking you up with some of that lightning and thunder. St. Louis down into Little Rock, you've got that risk for storms as well into Thursday morning. And then we watch as this front pushes eastward for our Halloween.
All right, we want to get back to the severe threat because a new tornado watch has just been issued here, and this is the spot that now includes Kansas City, eastern parts of Kansas, even into western Missouri.
We expected some of those watches to be expanded and pushed farther eastward as we watch that front move eastward, and that's exactly what we're seeing. What that tells me, though, is you want to be prepared for some of those tornadoes once the sun sets. So after sunset with that, you can see our line has continued to fill in over the past few hours, not quite as active farther north as it was, but we still have several severe thunderstorm warnings down in Oklahoma.
Yeah, we got to watch, and I do think these are going to get more intense in Kansas, but for now, a lot of these in Oklahoma have really taken off. Still a considerable threat tag here for Alfalfa, Garfield, and Grant counties just south of the Kansas state line.
Now, with that considerable threat tag, you've got 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts, you've got quarter-size hail, but where that has already moved past in Carrier, you had a 65-mile-per-hour wind gust reported there, so that is being realized. We are seeing some of those winds actually making it to the surface.
And further south, there's Enid, Oklahoma, by the way, and they're about to get hit with some of these strong winds. Blaine, Kingfisher, and major counties also under a severe thunderstorm warning, likely for wind gusts between 60, 65 miles per hour. And this line just continues further south. And where you get those darker purples, Felicia, that's where you could even have some hail.
Yeah, that's definitely a good indication that the radar's picking up on some hail. You can see this line just filling in. It's moving off to the north and east. So that's going to be the story for, the next several hours as it moves through the rest of Kansas, Missouri, and rest of Oklahoma. Now, lightning is not one of the aspects that would make a storm severe, but it can make it deadly. And man, this line has some lightning with it.
Well, and a lot of times too, you see how this whole line has really kind of seen an uptick in the counts of lightning. So this is intensifying.
So we have that risk for severe weather, and we've already seen those risks realized in considerable threat tags on some of these severe thunderstorm warnings on trees down, power lines down, power outages. So we're going to continue with that risk for some pretty robust storms heading into the evening and overnight tonight. Thanks for sticking with us on Weather Channel Live. Meteorologist Felicia Combs here, along with meteorologist Chris Bruin. We are going to touch on all the aspects of this front, but first let's break down these severe risks and what we have going on right now. Tornado watch until 10 p.m. for places like Kansas City and Fort Scott. That tornado watch stretching down into OKC until about 9 p.m. And then you see that severe thunderstorm watch farther to the north. Here's our line of storms right now. We've got most of our severe thunderstorm warnings in Oklahoma, but some very heavy rain and some lightning outside of that as you look farther north. Let's take a look at these severe thunderstorm warnings one by one from Weatherford up to Watonga until 5:30. You've got that possibility for some hail, for some damaging wind gusts as well. A little bit farther north, you'll notice we've got this kind of whole line of severe thunderstorm warnings here for the cities of Drummond, for Lahoma until 5:30. Again, damaging wind gusts and hail possible. Lots of lightning, very heavy rain with this. Now, I want to touch on this severe thunderstorm warning for Lamont, Medford. You're included in that. That is until 5 o'clock. You'll notice this threat considerable tag on this. That's a little bit higher of a level for a severe thunderstorm warning, and that is because you could have 70 or 80 mile per hour wind gusts. You could have some hail along with that. So if you have to drive that I-35 corridor, or 135, you're in it right now, but the I-35 corridor up toward Wichita, you're about to get slammed. Heavy rain, lots of lightning moving into Wichita right now, and then you'll notice looking up toward, say, Emporia, it's still to your west. That line of storms eventually going to make its way into Maryville and St. Joseph as well. Kansas City, not quite to you, but it will get to you later this evening. Des Moines, you're kind of in the light rain currently. Cedar Rapids, you've got that line of heavier storms and lightning that's moving in. Des Moines, you're in a break in between the more robust lines. You might have kind of lucked out on that first round, and then we're going to watch and see mainly light to moderate rain for you. But watch this front line of this frontal boundary as it kind of sparks up those storms and moves southeast Kansas City 7 to 9 p.m. for you into the Ozarks, places like Springfield around midnight. Fort Smith, you're getting into there around very early Thursday morning. And then we watch as this entire frontal boundary pushes south and east, Indianapolis down to Little Rock Thursday morning with that possibility for some storms. We do have a risk for Thursday, but it's not as robust as the risk for today. So let's talk about where we have that risk for maybe a little bit of winter weather as well, because that is going to be one thing that we're watching out for. Some of us have already.
We may get our first snow of the season in Minneapolis, Felicia. Where's the excitement?
A white Halloween is not at all on my bingo card of things that I want to happen on Halloween. Just about the only thing that I can think of that I want that is associated with the white Halloween would be those, those white Reese's peanut butter cups when they cover them in the white chocolate.
Yeah, so you're a big fan of that white, but not this white.
No.
Winter weather advisories for Duluth and a few counties there in northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin. Still a couple counties under winter storm watch. But I am concerned about the timing of this, and I think people are going to be caught by surprise by those big, they're going to be these big fat flakes because we start as rain, and then notice that's 4 a.m. on Halloween morning. You get to your morning commute. We're dealing with some pretty good rain. Yep. And it will probably be about 38, 39 degrees and dropping. If that precip falls heavily enough, we could change over during the morning rush. And that would be a big concern here, especially for urban areas, say in Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Those roads are going to be really slick tomorrow morning, going from that rain to that snow, that very heavy snow, that a 94 corridor, Minneapolis to St. Cloud, or even I-35, Chris, Duluth, Minneapolis, that is going to be a mess once that snow starts falling. I would not want to be on those roads. It's going to be a dangerous drive. This is a pretty big snowmaker.
This is, and in the last 24 hours, we've seen a big shift south with some of these accumulations, and that cold air is wanting to wrap farther down towards the Twin Cities. And we don't have any advisories yet, but I don't want people to be caught off guard. So don't say you were surprised by the snow in Minneapolis. Here's your first warning. Enjoy.